Tate has taken down a military base while suffering losses of his own. What's next for him? How will Sam and the others respond? Find out what's next. I'm your narrator, Chad, and this is episode 22, chapter 26 of No Evil. Let's escape. Tate awoke and there was sunlight. It was the orange and bright sun of a new morning. Tate saw he was on a table in an office of some type. His father was smoking a cigarette outside the window and looking around. Kahir may have been premature in his celebration, but by sunrise they had had their victory. Tate joined him, and, in the aftermath, they stared into the wreckage. "Oh, you don't look any worse for wear, do you?" Kahir said. Tate shook his head that he was fine, but his face betrayed a nagging thought. Tate could only think of one word to push.
Munson.
The name greeted him every second like a migraine. The gnawing, kneading, simmering annoyance of his being was overtaking Tate. Munson needed to be gone. It was Tate's throne to take, and he wouldn't share. He wanted to say it all, but just said Munson. Kahir seemed to understand. He smiled brightly and said, "All in time, my boy, all in time." Tate stretched his palms out to the smoking expanse and closed his eyes. Across the ground the dead began to quiver, bodies missing limbs, torsos without appendages, and corpses that had been run through with blades twitched and convulsed, soldiers long dead pushed to their feet across the field.
2 arms.
They grabbed their weapons and held them at their sides. Tate told the soldiers to form into squads. They obliged. Then he gave the order to march. Neither Tate nor Kahir could see the man with the zoom lens. He snapped nearly a dozen photos of the pair, of the carnage, and of the grotesque army they seemed to lead. Case said Jan could fire up the generator to charge her phone, and each of them took the opportunity to do the same. She had a dozen missed calls, mostly from Peter. One was from a number she didn't recognize. Jan was about to slip the phone into her purse when it began to buzz. Peter again. "Hello?"
"Hello, Jan. It's Peter."
"Hi, Peter. How have you been holding up?"
Not good. Not good. The story is bigger than a ride now, if it ever was that. I believe you.
Why? What happened? You sound off.
Like I told you, we were waiting at the Super 8 off the highway. Everything's going well. We got some decent photos of the rioters, some insight into the social issues at play, the usual.
Okay.
Then we hear this rumble outside. Had like a sloshy sound, too. We had no idea what it was. Then bam!
Jan pulled the phone from her ear. She'd never heard Peter sound afraid, and it was unsettling. She went on listening to him. He seemed to be sniffling with the phone at arm's length.
It was like something out of horror movies. All the rioters, most of the city was sauntering down the highway past the Super 8. We didn't want to attract attention in case they were dangerous, so we doused the light.
"It's okay, Peter," Jan said. It was really more for herself than it was for him.
They passed by without giving us any notice. None of them spoke. They just stared off down the road and kept walking. It was too weird for me, so I followed them.
"You did? Peter, that's so dangerous. You need to be as far away."
The base is gone, Jan.
"What? What do you mean?"
The forces base. I was sure they were going to send them in, but they held off, damn. Had they gone in when I was told they were going to, everything might be different.
"Peter, what happened at the base?"
I told you. It's gone. They took it. They blew it up and took it. And I came back here. I came back here to tell you that I don't think there's any going back.
"Peter, there..."
It's done, Jan. If they can take care of one of the biggest bases in the country in a day, a couple hours, then, Christ, I don't want to think about the future.
Case saw Jan's reaction on the phone and called Sam over. Again they watched her. Sam sensed Case's distrust of Jan grow. He felt she was holding back information. Sam wasn't sure if he really shared the feeling, or if it was Case's alone. One thing Sam knew for sure. He just wanted it all to end. If he could go back to hanging out on his couch watching Judge George McCree on TV, with a can of ravioli in one hand and a remote in the other, he'd be happy. "Pete, you sound like you've given up," Jan said.
No, I haven't. I took pictures. I sent them any way I could to everyone I could. We had people people in the city before, but I can't reach them now. The numbers all say they're out of order.
Why don't you and the others just get out of that motel and find a place further outside the city? I'll meet you.
Everyone that was with me here left. They saw that mass of people, and they just left while I was gone. I'm alone now.
There was a crackle and the line went dead. Peter? Shit! Jan turned to Sam. Can you get me to the Super 8 off the highway? It's about a 20-minute drive northeast of here. Why? What's going on? It's Peter, my boss. I think he might be in trouble. Can you take me there? If there's trouble there, Jan, maybe we should just stay out of it, Sam said. He didn't look her in the eye when he did. I can't just abandon him. Sam, you have to help me. Look, I'm not familiar with that place. I could end up in the wall or cut in half. Jesus. Do you think I want to use this?
Sam's right, Jan. What makes you think he's in trouble?
He was scared shitless. Then his phone crackled and went dead. In this climate, I think that's a pretty good reason to worry.
Granted,
Case said.
But what would you do if that red-haired maniac was there? I don't even know if that guy's human.
Well, what am I supposed to do? We can't just let him die alone at that motel. Jan's words croaked from her. She was devastated. Sam could feel it. He wanted to comfort her, but he knew the only thing that could was to take her to that motel, and he wouldn't let that happen. Sam wasn't willing to lead someone to their death. He saw what Tate and that mass of corpses could do. Sam wasn't in a hurry to see them again.
Jan, we just need to stay put for now,
Case said.
It's too dangerous.
I know it's dangerous, Jan said. Her croak became a squeal. Maybe you two can't deal with that, but I'm going. I can't lose another friend. Jan started for the door, grabbed her coat, gloves, and hat on the way, then got dressed. She looked back into the room. Sam and Case were looking at her pleadingly. Then Marina came out from the kitchen and into their attention. Jan, you really shouldn't go, Marina said. Her own eyes were marked with dark circles. I know how you feel. I'm sorry, Marina, but I have to go. Are you going for Peter? Or are you going for yourself? Does it matter? I'm going for both of us. Then think. What did he tell you to do? Do you think he'd want you running into that bunch of killers? Marina was crying again. Jen couldn't help but join her. It isn't fair, I know, Marina said.
Marina's right, Jan. What would Peter want?
Case joined his wife and put an arm around her. I can't take not knowing. I have to know if he's alive or if he's gone. Sam, are you going to help me? I can't, Sam said. Then goodbye. Come on, Jan. Don't do this. We have to stick together. Sam could feel the emotion. In any other case, he might have even cried, but his tear ducts were seared shut. His red eyes glowed behind sunglasses. Jan didn't bother speaking again. She slammed the door and walked out. Walking alone down the one-lane path, Jan got the overwhelming feeling she was making a big mistake, but she couldn't turn back now. She had to push forward and make sure Peter was alive. He was like a father to her. When Jan joined the Chronicle, she was only 21 years old. She'd done internships and 4 years of J school, but those first few weeks were nerve-wracking. Peter was her rock. He always knew how to make her laugh, but he could be stern as well. It was that balance that Jan appreciated in him. He knew when to be firm and when not to be. Jan was the type to stew over a mistake. Once, during those cub reporter days, Jan was in tears over a misplaced letter. It was the difference between shite and shire. Peter had one simple note: don't let it happen again. He had said it with a beaming smile. Jan could laugh about it after that. It took a few years, but she could. Under her feet the snow crunched. The semi-warm, fuzzy feeling of a new winter was long gone. These were the sled dog days, the days where it got so cold and snow became packed ice and lost the sticky quality that made it fun. Jan's boots crunched through the top layer of ice snow and into the powder below it. With every step, the icy cover would push up her pant legs and scratch against her shins. Jan could smell wood smoke in the air. People had to be close by. A few yards later, and Jan reached the end of another long path. At the end of it, she could see a cabin. White smoke billowed from the chimney. Jan tried to run toward the cabin, but the snow had drifted, and it was like when she ran hurdles in track and field. She remembered now why she quit. Her thighs were burning as she approached the door, and Jan took a few seconds to catch her breath before knocking. A voice said through the door, "Who is it? What do you want?" "Hi, I'm Jan. I'm trying to get back to my friend."
Then go to her. She ain't here.
Actually, I was hoping I could trouble you for a ride. The door opened, revealing a man in his late 60s. He wore coveralls over a green plaid work shirt. His cheeks and nose were red and creviced, Jen expected from years of drinking.
Oh, hello. Sorry, we don't get many visitors up here. You get to be a bit jumpy when someone comes along, especially since the city's gone to shit like it has.
Yes, it has, Jen said matter-of-factly.
Well, come on in then. Warm your bones. I'm Walter. This here's my wife, Nora.
An old woman wearing a beaming smile was arranging squares of fabric on the kitchen table. She gave a wave. A cast-iron frying pan filled with sizzling bacon sat atop a wood stove in the corner. The smell was incredible, and Jan's stomach growled.
You hungry?
Oh, no, I couldn't eat right now.
Sounds like you could. You're not one of them vegetarians.
No, nothing like that. I'm just worried about my friend. He was in the city.
Well, I can appreciate that, Nora said. Our youngest daughter works in the city. She got out just before it all happened. You haven't heard from her in a while, though, Walter chimed in. Last we heard, she was holed up in a motel off the highway.
Jan's heart leapt. A motel? It wasn't a Super 8, was it?
How'd you know that? Nora said.
My friend, Peter, that's where he was. That's where I'm heading now.
You're kidding,
said Walter. He removed his mesh-backed hat and scratched a few remaining sprigs of wiry white hair.
Tell you what,
he said in one exhaling breath.
I have a snow machine out back. She's covered up, nice and primed. Should be all set. Filled her up yesterday. You can take it.
I can? Really?
Yep, just one thing. If you see our daughter, you let her know we're at the cabin, and you tell her to call us, and you tell her to come home,
Walter said. His eyes were stern and powerful.
I will. What's her name?
Nora moved to the counter across the room, picked up her purse and rummaged through it. She pulled out a wallet, and from it a small picture.
Her name is Jamie. This is her, Nora said.
She handed the picture to Jan.
She's beautiful, Jan said.
Don't we know it, laughed Walter. Used to be all kinds of skunks chasing after her.
Jan laughed. They all did. Nora forced Jan to eat some bacon with a slice of buttered bread, and Jan was glad to have shared a moment with them. After she finished, Walter led her out to a small wooden shack. He pulled a cover off an old snowmobile. Must have been 20 years old, but it was pristine.
These things are shit for breaking down,
Walter said.
But she's my pride and joy up here in the winter months. When the lake freezes, I'll zip around. If she can help you on the way, I'll be glad.
There was a shelf at the back of the shed, and from it Walter pulled out a helmet and a balaclava. He handed them to Jan with a smirk.
You'll probably need these, especially the helmet, he laughed. Keep her skis down.
I'll try, Jan said seriously. Then she smiled.
You know where you're going? He asked.
Got it. Nora joined them outside when Walter fired up the snowmobile. Jan got on, pulled on the balaclava and the helmet, and waved goodbye to them. She was still thinking about them when the snowmobile pulled off the lane and onto the highway. And that's all for episode 22, chapter 26 of No Evil. If you're enjoying the podcast, let us know what you think in the comments. Give us a like, a share, a man named Ric Flair, do all the social media things, become an escapist by subscribing and clicking the bell. And you know what else you can do? You could have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next escape.